700 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel so far this weekend.
In a single day, more than 800 people crossed the Channel in small boats, the highest daily total for 2 months, and the highest December day on record. The year's total climbed above 41,000. That's not a talking point, that's a measurable reality. Now let me be clear from the first minute, this report is not here to turn human beings into slogans, because both extremes lie. One side tells you the UK is being flooded, everything is collapsing. If we're going to use words like flooding, we have to respect what floods actually do. They follow channels, they exploit weak points, they overwhelm systems that weren't designed for sustained surges. The other side tells you there's no problem, it's all hysteria. But you can't call it hysteria when hotels become long-term accommodation, when councils fight over placements, when asylum backlogs stack, when spending projections keep climbing, and when communities feel decisions are happening to them, not with them. So tonight we do what politicians often avoid. We follow the pressure, a step by step, from the sea to the street. We start at the waterline, where smuggling gangs watch weather apps like traders watch markets. Because in the Channel, everything happens in windows. And when a window opens, it's not 10 crossings across a month. It's hundreds in hours. And here's why those 800 crossings mattered so much. Because it's the only way people enter Britain, it isn't. Not because it's even the biggest part of migration is, it often isn't, but because small boats have become the national symbol of one question. Is the UK in control? When borders look unmanaged, everything else becomes harder to defend. When the system looks slow, every rumour spreads faster. When the government's language doesn't match what the public sees, trust snaps. And trust is the real currency of a country. If you want outrage, you can find it everywhere. What you rarely get is the full chain. The mechanics of how one crossing becomes weeks, months, sometimes years in the system. So, tonight, I'm going to ask you to watch this the way a serious country should. Not as a culture war, but as a systems test. Because when Britain argues about immigration now, it isn't only arguing about who comes in, it's arguing about what Britain is and whether Britain still works. By the end of this report, I want you to answer one question with total honesty. Is the UK in control or not? On Saturday, the 20th of December 2025, the Channel didn't just deliver a headline, it delivered a message. 803 people crossed in small boats in a single day, in 13 dinghies, the biggest daily total in 2 months and the highest December day on record. That pushed 2025's total to 41,455 small boat arrivals, now just below the record year of 2022. The same weekend, French authorities reported rescuing 151 people and returning them to France because whatever your opinion is on immigration, whatever you believe about asylum, one truth stands above the noise. When a country looks like it can't control its border, everything else becomes harder to govern. The UK Home Office recorded 803 arrivals on Saturday 20th December in 13 boats, and by that point, December had already reached 2,163 arrivals, despite winter usually being quieter. You've lived in Britain long enough, you know the Channel is rarely calm in winter, but it doesn't need to be calm every day. It only needs to be calm sometimes. And that's the first concept that matters in this story. Migration surges don't need a constant flow. They need windows. In the Channel, windows are created by weather, patrol patterns, launch points, and the smuggler's ability to move people quickly. When the window opens, the route isn't tested by a handful, it's tested by hundreds. That's why one day can reset the public argument for weeks. The government has published analysis linking crossing levels to conditions, including how the number of red days, days with conditions strongly unfavourable for crossings, can change from year to year. In January to April 2025, there were more than double the red days compared to the same period in 2024. And yet small boat arrivals were still 46% higher in that period. 11,074 versus 7,567. What does that tell you? It tells you this route is not simply people in desperation rowing across the coast. It is increasingly shaped by organised facilitation that adapts to conditions, launching when it can and pushing capacity when it does. Now here's the uncomfortable part for government. Small boats are not the only way people arrive in Britain. They're not even the only irregular route, but they are the most visible route. And visibility creates politics. The government's own immigration system statistics show that in the year ending September 2025, there were 51,000 detected arrivals via illegal routes, and small boats accounted for about 46,000, around 89% of illegal route arrivals in that period. Those are not small numbers. They are numbers that can shape elections, reshape communities, and dominate trust. And the same government statistics note that small boat arrivals in the year ending September 2025 were 53% higher than the previous year and close to the peak year. When the public says, it feels like the border isn't real, they're reacting to something measurable, a route that remains consistently active at scale. And this is crucial. The channel is not only a border issue, it's an enforcement geometry issue. Let's describe this carefully because the truth matters. Most channel crossings begin from the French coastline, often launched quickly, often at night or early morning. The boats are typically small, inflatable craft, overloaded and designed for speed and volume rather than safety. National Crime Agency has been clear that organised immigration crime groups profit from these crossings, and that matters because it changes how we understand the route. This is not only a humanitarian issue, it is a criminal marketplace. And like any marketplace, it follows three rules. Rule 1, demand creates opportunity. War, instability, persecution, poverty, family links and hope all create demand. Rule 2, enforcement shifts methods, not motives. When a route is pressured, smugglers adapt. Rule 3, pressure moves to the weakest point. Right now, for many people, the weakest point is the channel, because it is close enough to attempt, and because once a person arrives, removal is slow, complex, and heavily contested legally. There is a moral argument at the heart of the channel debate that Britain hasn't resolved. On the one hand, if people are at sea in unsafe craft, the first duty is to prevent deaths. That is rescue. On the other hand, if a rescue system is perceived as a guaranteed entry mechanism, it can function unintentionally as part of the smuggling pipeline. That is deterrence. The French rescue figures reported over the weekend, 151 people rescued and returned, underline the danger and the cross-border nature of the issue. This is not a UK-only problem, and it cannot be solved by UK policy alone, which brings us to the next key point. The Channel is a two-state border, but one-state politics. Crossings start in France, arrivals land in Britain, and Britain absorbs most of the political heat. That imbalance shapes everything. What has the state tried to do about it? In recent weeks, the Home Office has publicly emphasised the new framework under the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Act, aimed at taking on organised immigration crime with stronger powers, including measures that allow officers to seize devices and target facilitation networks. Particularly notable policy direction is this: targeting not only the boats themselves, but the supply chain, the equipment, the logistics, the people who enable the crossing business. It's a meaningful shift because it reflects a reality law enforcement already knows. If you only chase boats, you chase symptoms. If you disrupt the business, you target the cause. Now, I need to address the title of this video directly. Flooding with immigrants is a phrase that lands like a punch, and words like flooding can dehumanize people if they're used carelessly, because human beings are not water. But the reason the phrase exists is because many people aren't describing migrants. They're describing a feeling that the system is overwhelmed, a feeling that decisions are happening without consent, a feeling that the country is absorbing change faster than it can integrate, a feeling that the bill is rising while accountability disappears. Here is the honest verdict: a country can survive disagreement on immigration. It cannot survive a permanent belief that the system is out of control, because once the public stops believing in enforcement, every rumour becomes plausible. Once communities stop believing decisions are fair, every placement feels like imposition. Once the state stops delivering outcomes, politics becomes theatre, and the pressure keeps rising behind the curtain. Now, I want to ask you one question, one word only in the comments. Is UK is in control-y